She mistook a CEO for the grocery clerk bagging her items. But that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Meet Emily, an unassuming woman in her late 20s, doing her best to navigate life in the busy city of New York. She wasn't wealthy. In fact, Emily was doing everything she could to just scrape by. A part-time job at a local coffee shop, combined with long hours at a bookstore, was all she had to get through the month. She was proud of her work, but the stress of bills, rent, and student loans left her feeling exhausted. One chilly Thursday afternoon, Emily found herself at the local grocery store, picking up a few essentials for the week. The fluorescent lights hummed above her, and the aisles were lined with neatly arranged products. But despite the comforting hum of everyday life around her, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was always falling behind. The weight of her responsibilities seemed to follow her wherever she went. As she moved down the aisle, trying to decide between brands of pasta, her eyes fell on the self-checkout lanes. They were busy as usual, and so, she made her way to the regular lanes, where the line was a little shorter. As she approached, she noticed the man at the register, a tall, well-dressed man in a neat black suit. He wasn't wearing a uniform, and the way he moved made it clear that he was someone who didn't belong behind a cash register. He was carefully bagging the groceries of the woman in front of her, his movements efficient yet relaxed. His dark hair was neatly combed, and he exuded a quiet confidence that instantly made Emily curious. As the woman in front of her finished, the man smiled politely at Emily and gestured for her to step forward. "Next in line," he said, his voice low and pleasant. Emily smiled back and nodded, slightly flustered. She had always felt out of place in these upscale parts of the city. As she placed her items on the conveyor belt, she made a light-hearted comment, trying to mask her nerves. "It's a real treat to get out of the cold and do some shopping," she said, trying to make small talk. The man glanced up at her, offering a brief smile. "Yeah, it's definitely nicer than standing outside in the wind." Emily gave a small chuckle, relieved that the conversation was going smoothly. As he began to scan her items, she continued to talk, unaware that she had made a rather critical mistake. "I always come here when I'm feeling low. Nothing beats a good grocery run to lift your spirits," she said with a soft sigh. The man nodded thoughtfully, his eyes glancing at her. "I get that," he said, his voice warm. "Sometimes a routine is the best way to get through the day." Emily smiled, her shoulders relaxing. She didn't know why, but there was something comforting about the way this man spoke. He didn't seem to be in a rush, and the soft murmur of the store around them faded into the background as she focused on the exchange. As he handed her the last of her bags, she felt an odd sense of connection. He wished her a pleasant day, and without thinking, Emily responded in kind. "You too, Kevin." She had mistaken him for someone else, someone she was supposed to meet in a few minutes. The man paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "Actually, my name's not Kevin," he said, offering a kind but confused smile. Realizing her mistake, Emily's face flushed crimson. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she stammered, embarrassed. "I thought you were someone else. That's so awkward." The man laughed softly, clearly unbothered by her mix-up. "It happens," he said. "No worries." He handed her the receipt, and she quickly grabbed her bags, eager to escape the awkward moment. As she made her way out of the store, she couldn't help but glance back at the man one last time. There was something about him that lingered in her mind, even though she had just made a fool of herself. Little did she know, this mistake would change everything. As Emily hurried out of the store, she tried to shake off the awkwardness of the situation. Her heart still raced, not just from the embarrassment, but because there had been something about the man, something in his eyes that made her feel strangely seen, even if just for a moment. She didn't even know his name, but the brief exchange had left her with a nagging feeling that wouldn't quite fade. She pushed the thought to the back of her mind as she stepped into the chilly evening air. Her life had become a series of endless days that blurred into one another, and the last thing she needed was to think about some stranger who had accidentally bagged her groceries. But still, something lingered. The next few days passed in a blur for Emily. Between the early mornings at the coffee shop and late nights studying for exams, she barely had time to breathe, let alone think about her brief encounter at the grocery store. Her routine was predictable, yet suffocating. Every day she struggled to keep up with bills, rent, and the constant pressure to do more, be more. She had dreams, big dreams, but it felt like they were always just out of reach. On the morning of her day off, Emily decided to treat herself. She had a rare moment of freedom, so she went to the small coffee shop she loved, hoping to find some inspiration. As she sat down with her cappuccino, flipping through her sketchbook, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she came face to face with the man from the grocery store. He looked just as polished as before, his tailored suit sharp against the soft lighting of the coffee shop. "Hi, Emily," he said, his voice warm, a little amused. "I didn't expect to run into you here." Emily froze for a moment, not quite sure how to respond. She had no idea what to say. I didn't think I'd see you again," she stammered, a smile tugging at her lips despite the surprise. "I didn't expect it either," he said, sitting down at the table across from her without waiting for an invitation. His confident demeanor made her uneasy, but there was something disarming about the way he looked at her, as if he wasn't in a hurry to move on. He seemed genuinely interested. "I hope you don't mind me showing up like this," he said, his tone still friendly. "I was just thinking about our conversation the other day. At the store. You mentioned you were studying, right?" Emily nodded, still feeling the weight of the unexpected meeting. "Yeah, I'm in my last year at university. I'm majoring in graphic design. It's been a challenge." She couldn't help but laugh a little. "But I love it. I just don't know what I'll do after graduation. The world feels so big, and I'm stuck in this tiny little apartment, trying to make ends meet." He listened intently, his gaze unwavering. "I get that," he said thoughtfully. "It's hard when the things you want to do feel so far away." Emily glanced at him, a little confused. "You sound like you've been through it yourself." He smiled slightly, almost sadly. "You could say that." There was a pause, and then he leaned forward slightly. "I'm Liam, by the way. I don't think I mentioned it before." She blinked, taken aback. "Liam?" she repeated, her mind trying to process the name. The pieces clicked into place, but it took her a moment to put it all together. "Wait, Liam Parker?" His smile widened, and he nodded. "Yes, that's me. I'm the CEO of Parker Technologies. But you're right, I wasn't working as a grocery clerk. That was part of a project I was working on." Emily's mind raced as she tried to understand what he was saying. This wasn't just some guy at the grocery store. This was Liam Parker, a tech millionaire, someone she'd heard about but never imagined she'd meet. Her stomach flipped. You're the CEO?" she asked, barely able to get the words out. He nodded again, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know it sounds strange, but I was doing a little undercover project, just seeing what it was like for the people who work behind the scenes. I wanted to understand the struggles a bit better. I didn't expect to meet someone like you." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," she muttered, feeling embarrassed all over again. "I didn't recognize you. I made a fool of myself." Liam's expression softened, and he shook his head. "No need to apologize. I actually enjoyed our conversation. It was nice to talk to someone who wasn't just interested in my title or my money. You spoke honestly, and that's rare." Emily felt her cheeks flush, a mix of embarrassment and something else, something warm that she didn't quite understand. "So what now?" she asked, her voice quieter than before. He smiled, a glint of something playful in his eyes. "Well, I was wondering if you'd like to join me for a project I'm working on. It's not a business thing, more like a personal passion project. Something about your energy. I think you'd be perfect for it." Emily stared at him, unsure of how to respond. Was he serious? Was this some kind of charity work, or did he want something from her? He seemed to sense her hesitation. "Think of it as an opportunity. I'm building something that could really help people, and I need someone with your creativity." Emily sat there, her mind racing. This could be the break she'd been looking for, but she had no idea where it would lead. Could this really be the opportunity of a lifetime, or was it just another trap? The next few days passed in a whirlwind for Emily. She could barely focus on her usual tasks at the coffee shop and the bookstore. Her mind kept drifting back to Liam and the strange offer he had made. A personal passion project? What did that even mean? Emily spent nights lying awake, tossing and turning, wondering if this was some sort of elaborate trick or if it was truly the opportunity she had been waiting for. The idea of working on a project with someone like Liam was overwhelming. He was a tech millionaire, someone whose life seemed so far removed from hers. How could she, a struggling college student with no real connections, ever contribute to something he was working on? But then, there was the way he looked at her, like he genuinely believed in her potential. Emily decided to take a leap of faith. On a rainy Friday afternoon, she texted Liam back, agreeing to meet him for coffee to discuss the project further. As she walked into the same coffee shop where they had met before, she felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She spotted Liam sitting at the corner booth, his usual composed demeanor radiating confidence. He looked up as she approached, and the smile he gave her was warm, reassuring. "I'm glad you decided to come," he said, motioning for her to sit. "I know this might feel a little strange, but I promise you I wouldn't have reached out if I didn't think you were the right person for this." Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "So what exactly is this project?" she asked, her voice slightly shaky. Liam leaned forward, his tone serious now. "It's a new initiative we're launching at Parker Technologies. We're focusing on helping underprivileged communities with access to technology and resources for entrepreneurship. I need someone with fresh, creative ideas to help shape the visual identity of the project. I believe your background in graphic design can help make it stand out. This isn't just about making a logo or some marketing materials. It's about telling a story that will inspire people to believe in themselves and take action." Emily listened intently, the weight of his words slowly sinking in. She had always dreamed of using her skills for something bigger, something that could make a real difference in the world. But this felt like more than she ever imagined. "But why me?" she asked, still unsure. "I'm just a student. I have no experience in big projects like this. And I'm pretty sure you have a lot of other people you could ask." Liam smiled softly, as if he had anticipated her response. "Because you're not just any student. You have a passion and a drive that's hard to find. And when we spoke before, you were real with me. You weren't trying to impress me. You were just yourself. That's exactly the kind of honesty and creativity we need." Emily felt her cheeks flush. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She had always been told that success came from networking, connections, and being the best at what you do. But here was someone who believed in her just for who she was. It was a little overwhelming, but in the best way. Liam continued, "I understand if this all seems like a lot. You don't have to decide right now. But think about it. This could be a chance for you to use your talents to make a real impact." Emily sat there for a moment, the weight of his offer settling in. She had always dreamed of doing something meaningful, but could she really take the plunge? Was she ready for the responsibility? She looked into Liam's eyes, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a small fish in a big pond. She felt like she had something to offer. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady now. "I'll do it. I'll help with the project." Liam's face lit up with a smile. "That's great," he said, standing up and extending his hand to her. "I know this is just the beginning, but I'm really excited to see what we can accomplish together." As they shook hands, Emily couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. This could be the beginning of something big. Little did she know, this project would not only change her career, but would also change the way she viewed herself. Over the next few weeks, Emily threw herself into the project with a newfound sense of purpose. Liam's team at Parker Technologies was incredibly supportive, and they gave her the space to be creative. The project took shape quickly, and before long, Emily's designs were at the forefront of the campaign. It wasn't long before the media caught wind of the initiative, and soon, the project gained national attention. People started to talk about it, and Emily found herself in the spotlight, something she had never expected. But amid the excitement and the growing recognition, something else was happening. She found herself drawn to Liam in a way she hadn't anticipated. There was a depth to him that went beyond his wealth and status. He wasn't just the CEO, he was someone who truly cared about making a difference. As the project continued to grow, Emily began to realize that this wasn't just a professional connection. There was something deeper forming between them. But Emily wasn't sure if she was ready to admit it, especially considering how different their worlds were. She kept her feelings to herself, focusing on the work at hand. However, the more time they spent together, the harder it became to ignore the undeniable chemistry between them. As the days passed, Emily found herself settling into a rhythm with the project. Liam had given her more responsibility, and the team at Parker Technologies was starting to take notice of her creativity. She was no longer just the student struggling to make ends meet. She was becoming a key player in an initiative that was quickly gaining momentum. The project, designed to bring technology and resources to underserved communities, had begun to grow, and with it, Emily's role. She had never imagined that her simple passion for design would lead her here, working alongside Liam and his team, making a real impact on the world. But as much as the project was giving her a sense of purpose, it was also making her realize something else. Her feelings for Liam were growing stronger. She had tried to ignore it at first, focusing on her work, but every meeting, every conversation, only made the connection between them more undeniable. There was a bond between them, something that went beyond professional respect. It was there in the way they spoke, the way Liam always seemed to listen when she spoke, and the way he would look at her, like she was more than just a designer, more than just a colleague. It was complicated, though. Emily wasn't sure how to navigate these feelings. Liam was her boss, her mentor, and their worlds were so different. She came from a modest background, struggling to pay rent and balance her studies, while he was a wealthy CEO with a life most people could only dream of. Would he even be interested in someone like her, or was it just her imagination running wild? One evening, after a particularly productive day, Liam invited her to a small dinner at a nearby restaurant to discuss the next steps of the project. They had been working late, and Emily had barely eaten all day. She agreed, more out of exhaustion than anything else, and they made their way to the restaurant. It was a quiet, intimate place, far removed from the usual bustling New York scene. As they sat down to eat, Emily couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The setting was luxurious, and she wasn't used to being in such high-end environments. But Liam, as always, made her feel at ease. "You know, you've really impressed me, Emily," he said, taking a sip of his wine. "Your vision for this project, the way you approach everything with such passion, it's rare to find someone like you." Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "Thank you," she replied, a little self-conscious. "I'm just doing what I love. I never imagined I'd be in a position to actually make a difference." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "Well, I think you're making more of a difference than you realize." For a moment, there was a silence between them, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Emily tried to focus on her meal, but her mind was racing. She could feel the growing tension between them, something unspoken, something that neither of them had acknowledged yet. Liam set his fork down, his expression becoming more serious. "Emily," he began, his voice low, "I know we've been working closely together on this project, but I need to ask you something. It's not about the work, but about us." Her heart skipped a beat. She looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat. "Us?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Liam nodded slowly, his gaze locked with hers. "I can't help but notice how much we've been connecting over the past few weeks. And I need to be honest with you. I'm starting to feel something more than just professional respect for you." Emily's pulse quickened. She wasn't sure what to say. This was it. The moment she had both dreaded and hoped for. She had felt the pull between them, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel so real. "I didn't expect this," she said softly, looking down at her hands. "I never wanted to complicate things, especially with all that's going on with the project. But I can't deny that I feel the same way." Liam's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. "I don't want to complicate things either, but I also don't want to ignore what's between us. You're an incredible person, Emily, and I think we could be great together, both personally and professionally." Emily felt a rush of emotions, relief, excitement, and fear, all at once. She had always kept her distance from people in positions of power, fearing that she wouldn't measure up. But Liam wasn't like anyone else. He saw her for who she was, and that made all the difference. "But how do we make this work?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam smiled, his grip on her hand tightening. "We take it one step at a time. We focus on the work, the project, and let everything else fall into place. If this is meant to be, it will be." Emily took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She had no idea where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. They finished their meal, talking about the future of the project, but the undercurrent of their conversation lingered. The connection between them was undeniable, and Emily knew that this was only the beginning of something far more significant than she could have imagined. As they left the restaurant together, the city lights seemed to sparkle a little brighter, and Emily couldn't help but feel like her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. In the weeks that followed, Emily found herself navigating an unexpected new chapter of her life. Her professional role had evolved beyond anything she had ever imagined. Liam's confidence in her had opened doors she never thought possible, and the project they were working on was beginning to take off. Emily was not only contributing creatively, but her ideas were also shaping the core direction of the initiative. As the project gained attention, the pressure also started to mount. There were long meetings, media interviews, and endless deadlines. Despite the overwhelming demands, Emily couldn't ignore the growing connection she had with Liam. They spent more time together, both in and out of the office, and she realized that the professional respect she felt for him was slowly transforming into something deeper. They talked about everything: work, dreams, and even their personal lives. Emily had always kept her guard up when it came to relationships, especially with someone so successful, but Liam made her feel safe, heard, and understood in a way no one else had before. Yet, there was a part of her that hesitated. Emily was still a college student with big dreams, but she didn't come from the world that Liam did. He was a CEO, a millionaire with a life of privilege and opportunities. She feared that once the project was over, once the excitement died down, so too would their connection. Was it possible to have something real with someone like him, or was it just a fleeting moment? Liam seemed to sense her doubts. One evening, after a particularly successful presentation for potential investors, he invited Emily to his penthouse for dinner. He had been working tirelessly, as had she, and he thought they could use a break. Emily hesitated for a moment. The idea of being alone with Liam in such an intimate setting was intimidating. She had seen the way he moved through the world, effortless, poised, and confident. She didn't know if she could match his pace. Still, she agreed. When she arrived at his penthouse, she was struck by how different it felt from the last time they had met there. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, the view of the city skyline from his living room breathtaking. Liam was already there, preparing dinner. He smiled when he saw her and gestured for her to sit at the island in the kitchen. "I figured after today, we could use a good meal. You've been working nonstop, and I'm sure you could use a break," he said, his tone light. Emily smiled, trying to relax in the luxurious setting. "This is amazing," she said, looking around. "You've got everything here." Liam chuckled, setting down a bottle of wine. "I try to make this place feel like home. But honestly, it's the people who make a place feel like home. And tonight, it's all about you." His words, so genuine and direct, took Emily by surprise. She hadn't expected him to be so open about his feelings, so unaffected by his status. He wasn't just the CEO, he was someone who cared. The meal was simple, but the conversation was easy. They laughed, joked, and shared stories about their lives. Liam opened up about the challenges he had faced growing Parker Technologies, the long nights, and the sacrifices. Emily shared her struggles, too. Her financial struggles, the pressure of her studies, and her dreams of making a name for herself in the creative world. As the night wore on, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. The unease she had about her place in Liam's world began to fade. He wasn't looking at her with pity or judgment. He was looking at her like she was his equal, and that meant everything to her. When dinner was over, they went out to the balcony to watch the city lights twinkle below. It was a moment of stillness, where everything felt in sync. Liam leaned against the railing, his eyes on the skyline. "You know," he said softly, "I've never been good at letting people in. It's easier to stay closed off, to focus on work, and pretend that nothing else matters. But then I met you, and everything changed." Emily turned to him, her heart racing. "I didn't expect any of this," she said quietly. "I didn't expect to feel this way about you." Liam's gaze softened, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. "I don't want to rush anything, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "But I can't ignore what I feel either. And I think we have something worth exploring." Emily nodded, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Could she truly have something real with him? Something that went beyond the project, beyond the work they were doing? She wasn't sure, but in that moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't need to have all the answers right away. They could figure it out together. The city below them continued to hum with life, but up here, everything felt perfect, quiet, and full of possibility. Emily had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to find out. As they stood there, side by side, the world felt a little smaller, and the connection between them, undeniable. The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Emily. Her professional life was expanding in ways she had never imagined, and her personal life was starting to mirror the excitement of her career. The project with Liam and Parker Technologies continued to grow, and Emily found herself deeply immersed in the work. She wasn't just designing logos or websites. She was shaping the very narrative of a project that could change lives. Liam, as always, was there to guide her, offering advice when needed and space to let her ideas flourish. But as their work relationship deepened, so did their personal connection. Their late-night conversations became more frequent, and their interactions more intimate. Every time they were together, whether in the office or after hours, the bond between them seemed to grow stronger. Emily started to realize that the feelings she had for Liam weren't just a fleeting attraction, they were real. She found herself thinking about him even when they weren't together. The way he made her laugh, the way he always seemed to understand what she needed without her having to say a word. He made her feel like she was more than just a struggling student. He made her feel seen, valued, and respected. Yet, with all the positive changes in her life, there was still a lingering unease. Emily had spent so much of her life feeling like an outsider, and now, in this world of tech billionaires and fast-paced business, she wasn't sure where she fit in. Was she just a small part of Liam's world, or was there a place for her in it, beyond the project, beyond the work they were doing? One evening, as the project was nearing its final stages, Liam invited Emily to a private event. It was a high-profile gala to celebrate the launch of the initiative they had been working on. The guest list included influential business figures, philanthropists, and even a few media personalities. Emily had never been to an event like this before. She was nervous, unsure of what to expect or how to navigate the world Liam moved in. As they arrived at the venue, a sleek, modern building with glass windows that reflected the city lights, Emily felt a wave of self-doubt wash over her. She was wearing a beautiful dress that Liam had suggested for the evening, but she still felt out of place. Everyone else seemed so confident, so polished. But Liam was by her side, and his presence made her feel like she belonged. "You look incredible," he said softly, his gaze warm as he looked at her. "You're going to shine tonight." Emily smiled, grateful for his reassurance. "Thanks, Liam. But I don't know if I can handle all this," she said, motioning to the crowd around them. "I'm not really used to this kind of world." Liam's hand brushed against hers, a silent promise of support. "You don't have to be used to it. Just be yourself. That's why I asked you to come. You're here because you belong here, because you're a part of this." They stepped inside, and Emily was immediately struck by the grandeur of the event. The room was filled with people in designer gowns and tuxedos, the sound of clinking glasses and polite conversation filling the air. It was a world so different from the one she was used to. Yet Liam's calm presence by her side made her feel less intimidated. As the evening unfolded, Emily began to relax. Liam introduced her to a few people, including some of the key figures involved in the project. She found herself in deep conversations about the work they had been doing, and she was amazed at how much respect people had for her ideas. She wasn't just the girl from the coffee shop anymore. She was an integral part of something meaningful. Yet, amidst all the success and accolades, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Liam wasn't telling her. He had always been kind, patient, and encouraging, but there were moments when she noticed him retreating into himself, his smile fading slightly when he thought no one was watching. She couldn't ignore the fact that he still hadn't fully opened up about his past, his true feelings, or even the deeper reasons behind the project. That night, as the event began to wind down and the guests started to leave, Emily found herself alone with Liam. The atmosphere had shifted. There was a quiet tension between them that hadn't been there earlier. Liam turned to her, his expression serious. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice low. Emily's heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong?" she asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. Liam hesitated, then spoke in a way he never had before. "I know we've been working closely, and I know we've developed a connection. But there's something you need to understand about me. About why I do what I do." Emily looked up at him, her chest tightening. She had always known there was more to Liam than what he showed on the surface. He was driven, ambitious, but there were shadows in his eyes, shadows that spoke of a past he kept hidden. "What is it?" she asked softly. Liam took a deep breath and finally spoke the words that had been on his mind. "I didn't get here by accident. I've had to sacrifice a lot to get where I am. And sometimes, I've had to make choices that left me feeling empty. The project we've been working on, it's not just about helping others. It's about redeeming myself, finding some kind of purpose beyond just the business." Emily felt a pang in her chest. She had no idea that Liam's drive for success was rooted in such deep personal struggles. She had always admired him for his strength, but now, hearing him speak so openly, she realized just how much he had been carrying. "Liam," she said, her voice soft, "I had no idea. I didn't know you were going through all that." He met her eyes, his expression vulnerable. "I didn't want you to, but now, I'm realizing that maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time to let someone in." Emily felt a rush of emotion. She had spent so much of her life hiding behind walls, afraid to let anyone see the real her. But now, with Liam's honesty, she felt like she could finally take down her own walls, too. "You don't have to go through it alone," she said quietly. Liam smiled, a genuine, soft smile that reached his eyes. Maybe not anymore. The days following that conversation felt like a shift in Emily's world. She and Liam had broken through a barrier, one that neither of them had even realized existed until that night. Now, things felt different. There was a new kind of understanding between them. They were no longer just colleagues working on a project, but two people who had let down their walls and allowed each other to see the vulnerabilities that had always been hidden beneath the surface. The project continued to thrive, gaining momentum in ways they hadn't anticipated. The media picked up on it, and soon enough, people from all over the country were reaching out to get involved. Emily was constantly in meetings, discussing new ideas, and pushing the boundaries of what they had originally envisioned. But amid the whirlwind of success, something else was quietly growing: her feelings for Liam. He had been by her side through it all, but now, it wasn't just about work. Emily couldn't deny that there was something deeper happening between them. The way he would smile at her during meetings, the way his presence seemed to calm her nerves. It was clear to both of them that the professional connection they had was evolving into something much more personal. But that didn't mean everything was easy. Emily's old insecurities started creeping back in. She had never been someone who allowed herself to get too close to people, especially not someone like Liam. She had always been the outsider, the one who worked hard but never really fit in with the elite. Now, she was in Liam's world, surrounded by successful people, fancy events, and more money than she had ever seen in her life. She worried that this was all just a dream, a fleeting moment that would eventually come crashing down. She had been burned before by believing in something that wasn't real. One evening, after another long day of work, Emily decided to step outside for a bit of fresh air. She found herself standing on the balcony of her apartment, looking out at the city below. The night was quiet, the lights of the buildings casting a soft glow on the streets. It was moments like this, in the stillness, that Emily could almost hear her own doubts creeping in. She closed her eyes, taking in a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. That was when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, I was thinking about our conversation the other night. I wanted to check in with you. I know we've been working a lot lately, but I think we should talk. Meet me at the park tomorrow afternoon." The message was simple, but Emily felt a wave of anxiety rush over her. Was this the moment when everything would change? Was Liam going to tell her something that would make her question everything they had built? The next day, Emily found herself standing in the park, waiting for Liam. The sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground. She watched as people jogged by, couples strolled hand in hand, and children played in the distance. She was starting to doubt her decision to come here. What was Liam going to say? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She turned to see Liam walking toward her, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was something different in his eyes. It was as though he had been carrying something heavy, something he needed to say. "Hey," he greeted, giving her a soft smile. "Thanks for meeting me." Emily nodded, trying to smile back. "Of course, Liam. What's on your mind?" He paused for a moment, then motioned for her to walk with him. "Let's take a walk," he said. As they walked side by side, the The silence between them was comfortable, but it was also filled with anticipation. Emily couldn't help but feel like there was something he needed to tell her. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened between us," Liam said, his voice steady but with a trace of uncertainty. "I know this is all new territory for both of us. The project, the work, and us." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for him to address it, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel more real than ever. "What do you mean?" she asked quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. Liam stopped walking and turned to face her. He took a deep breath, his expression serious but kind. "I know I've been focused on the project and my own goals, but over the past few weeks, I've realized that I want more than just success. I want something real, with someone I can trust. And I want that person to be you, Emily." Emily felt a rush of emotions, surprise, relief, and a deep sense of warmth. She had always wondered if this moment would come, but hearing Liam express it so clearly made her heart swell. She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt, but all she saw was sincerity. "Liam, she paused, unsure of what to say. She wanted to be honest, to let him know how much this meant to her, but the words were hard to find. Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't want to rush things, and I don't want to complicate our work, but I think we've both realized that we've already crossed a line, and I'm okay with that. I just want to know if you're on the same page. I want to be with you, Emily." The world seemed to pause for a moment, the noise of the city fading into the background. Emily stood there, her hand in his, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent so much of her life guarding her heart, but now, standing here with Liam, everything felt different. She felt safe, seen, and most importantly, ready to take a chance on something real. "I am," she said softly, finally finding her voice. "I want that too, Liam." And in that moment, everything fell into place. The uncertainty, the fears, the doubts, they didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that they had found each other in a world full of chaos, and that was all they needed. The days that followed were a whirlwind of excitement, change, and discovery. Emily and Liam had officially crossed the line between work and personal life, and there was no turning back. The tension that had once been there, the doubt and hesitation, faded as they embraced their new reality. They continued to work on the project, but now there was something more between them, a bond that was built on trust, understanding, and genuine connection. Emily found herself more inspired than ever. Her creativity flowed freely, and her designs became even bolder as she realized that she had someone by her side who believed in her, not just as a professional, but as a person. The project continued to grow, attracting attention from all over the country. Their work was making a real impact, and the momentum was undeniable. But it wasn't just the project that was evolving, it was their relationship. They spent more time together, both inside and outside of the office. They shared quiet dinners, long walks, and deep conversations that lasted into the night. Emily began to feel something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Hope. Hope for a future that was bright, not just professionally, but personally. She had always been afraid to open her heart to someone, but Liam had proven to her that vulnerability didn't have to be a weakness. It could be a strength. One evening, as they walked through the city, hand in hand, Emily realized how much her life had changed in such a short amount of time. She had started this journey with nothing but a dream and a desire to make a difference. Now, she was working on a groundbreaking project with Liam, someone she had come to care for deeply. The world around them was alive with energy, people bustling through the streets, cars honking in the distance, the hum of the city that never seemed to sleep. But in that moment, as they walked together, everything felt calm. Liam stopped and turned to her, his expression soft but serious. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about everything we've built together, about this project and about us," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emily looked up at him, her heart racing. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice quiet. Liam took a deep breath before speaking again. "I know we've been through a lot, personally and professionally, but I want you to know that I'm not just in this for the project. I'm in this for you. I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I don't want to waste any more time. I want to be with you, not just as your partner in work, but in life." Emily's heart swelled at his words. She had known for some time that she felt the same way, but hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. She had been afraid to fully admit her feelings, afraid that it might complicate things. But now, standing there with him, it felt right. Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, I want that too. I never thought I'd find something like this. But I'm so glad I did. He smiled, a smile that made her heart flutter. I don't want to rush things. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Emily felt the weight of his words settle into her heart. She had spent so much time doubting herself, afraid that she wasn't enough, that she didn't deserve the life she had now. But with Liam, she felt like she finally had the space to be herself, to love and be loved in return. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, the noise of the city fading into the background. It was as if the world had paused, just for them. Emily knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, doubts, and obstacles. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face whatever came their way. She had Liam by her side, and that made all the difference. As they walked back to his apartment, hand in hand, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. The future, once so uncertain, now seemed full of endless possibilities. And no matter what happened next, she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer alone. Together, they were unstoppable. As the months passed, Emily and Liam's relationship deepened. The project they had started together was now a national success, garnering praise for its impact on underserved communities. But more than that, the partnership between them had blossomed into something that neither of them had expected. They had built something incredible, not just professionally, but personally. Their connection was undeniable, and it seemed like the more they worked together, the more their bond strengthened. Emily's creativity flourished under Liam's encouragement. He supported her every step of the way, not just as a business partner, but as someone who genuinely believed in her. With him by her side, she was no longer the unsure, insecure young woman she had once been. She was confident, empowered, and ready to take on whatever the future held. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, times when Emily questioned if she was truly worthy of this life, this success. She still struggled with the idea that her past, her humble beginnings, might one day catch up with her. She had always feared that someone like Liam, with all his wealth and influence, would eventually realize that she didn't belong in his world. But Liam never gave her any reason to doubt him. He was patient, understanding, and always there to reassure her. He never made her feel less than. He loved her for who she was, flaws and all, and that was something Emily had never experienced before. One day, as they sat in Liam's office, discussing the next phase of the project, he suddenly turned to her, a serious expression on his face. Emily, there's something I need to ask you, he said, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. She looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. What's that? She asked, her voice soft. Liam stood up and walked over to where she was sitting. I know we've been through so much together, both in our personal lives and with the project. But I want to know if you're ready for the next step. The next chapter. Emily felt her pulse quicken. She had no idea what he was getting at, but she could feel the tension building in the air. Liam knelt down in front of her, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small box. He opened it to reveal a beautiful ring, sparkling in the light. Emily, will you marry me? He asked, his voice filled with sincerity. Emily's heart soared. She had never imagined this moment. But as she looked at Liam, all the doubts and fears she had carried for so long melted away. She knew, in that instant, that she had found the person she was meant to be with. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, I will. Liam smiled, his eyes shining with joy as he slid the ring onto her finger. The room seemed to fade away as they embraced, the weight of the moment settling over them. It wasn't just the ring or the proposal that mattered. It was the life they had built together, the trust they had in each other, and the love that had grown stronger with each passing day. They had faced their fears, their doubts, and the challenges that came with being in a relationship that was both personal and professional. And now, they were ready for whatever came next. The months that followed were filled with excitement and planning. They worked together to finalize the project, with Emily taking the lead on the creative direction and Liam handling the business side of things. The world had noticed their success, and it felt like there was nothing they couldn't achieve together. Their wedding day came quickly, a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect. Liam and Emily stood together, hand in hand, as they exchanged vows, promising to support and love each other no matter what. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. She had once feared that love would always be out of reach, that she didn't deserve the happiness she had now. But standing there with Liam, she knew that all of her struggles had led her to this moment. She had found the love she had always dreamed of, and it was real. The future was no longer uncertain. It was full of promise. Together, they were ready to face anything. With their love as the foundation, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. And in that moment, as they looked into each other's eyes, they knew that they had built something that would last a lifetime. They were no longer two separate people. They were a team, united by love, and ready to take on the world together.